Hi everyone, welcome to Meet the Author and Rolling Out. Today we're excited to sit down with Tracy L, an incredible children's author, educator, and screenwriter whose debut book, Mommy, Where's My Daddy, is already touching the hearts of families everywhere. With more than 20 years of experience in education, plus her leadership of the Sankofa Global Project, Tracy has dedicated her life to helping children explore creativity, identity, and love. Now, we're thrilled to talk with her today about her journey, the inspiration behind her book, and wisdom she has gathered along the way. Hi, Tracy.
Hello, Vera.
Let's start at the beginning.
Okay,
What defining experience in your life shaped your voice as an author, and how has your storytelling evolved over time?
that's a wonderful question. And so I'll address the second part first. How has my storytelling journey developed over time? So I come from a family of storytellers. My father is a
Mm,
great storyteller. My mother is a great storyteller. It's in our tradition to tell stories about family, to tell stories about our education journey. My father was a very, very gifted storyteller. He was also an attorney, he was a teacher, a real estate agent, and when he passed, he was a minister. And so
mm,
I benefited from that. My mother also is a storyteller. She was a social worker for many years and would come home and tell us stories about her experiences out in the field. She worked in the fields and helping
mm,
families and communities. And for me myself, I was a classroom teacher for many years. Being a classroom teacher, you have to be a great storyteller. You have to be an entertainer as a teacher.
yes, you do.
You
You
have to be
do.
an entertainer. And so I was very interested in storytelling. I got my master's degree at Bank Street College of Education, and I took a children's literature class with Sal Vassalaro. I think he's retired now. And during the entire class, we would read children's books. And children's books from various authors, various topics, nonfiction, fiction, and they draw out the best in what's happening around the world. I love African folk tales. I traveled to Ghana once. Well, I've traveled to Ghana a few times,
Mm,
but one of the times I went, my school paid for me because I was looking for ways to bring Africa into the classroom. I taught at an independent school in New York City, and which was a predominantly white institution. And I was there for many years and had many great opportunities, but I felt that there was something missing and the African voice was missing. And so I said I wanted to bring Africa into the classroom and I wrote a grant and they sent me to Ghana to learn about Africa. And I thought I knew something. I went to an historically black college university. I graduated from Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio, many years ago. And I'd studied third world international politics. I was a political science major. I studied the continent of Africa and all different continents. But when I got to Ghana, I shut my mouth because I knew absolutely nothing. I thought I knew something, being a Black woman, growing up in Detroit, having all of these
mm,
experiences. But when I got to the continent, I realized how woefully ignorant I was about Ghanaian culture, about the diversity of the continent of Africa. And it inspired me to think about my own storytelling abilities. I listened to the children when I was in Ghana share stories that they'd heard from generations, from literally from generations. There was a girl in Apatrapa, and she told me about how her family lived in the mountains for like
mm,
she could trace her family for like 900 years, and it blew me away because I didn't have that perspective. And so I really started taking my storytelling seriously. And again, like I said, I didn't tell you before, but it took me a very long time to get my master's degree because I was a single parent. I was a single parent,
mm,
going to school full time, working full time, and being a parent full time, and having many stops and starts. And during that time, my daughter would ask, Mommy, where is my daddy? Because we had broken up before she was born. And I was struggling to
mm,
find a way to tell this story to her, about how family and other people in the community were the ones who were filling in the gap in her dad's
mm,
absence. And this book that I've written pretty much carries the journey.
Okay. See, it's extremely personal to you, and I do love that because it helps when you're writing, and then you can talk from your own experiences, not just something you read about or something you can imagine. And I do love that.
Yeah.
So all I can say is single moms are the strongest because juggling a career, children, and just life in general,
Yeah. And
it's
so
amazing.
it is amazing.
Amazing.
Writing the story was a turning point for me because it was the basis of my master's thesis. It took me
Oh,
15 years to get my master's degree. And by the time I graduated, I ended up with two masters because I'd spent so much time studying, going and coming. Oh, thank you, thank you. So I have a master's degree in early childhood education and a master's degree in general education, which means I can teach any age group. And throughout this
mm,
journey, I would record the conversation. I would take little notes. I used to walk around with little pieces of paper of the conversations that my daughter Sequoia and I would have. And when I was looking for a subject matter to study my master's, my advisor, Stan Chu from Bank Street, said, "Why don't you make this your focus, your children's book?" And I was like, "A children's book?" He goes, "You've
mm,
been collecting these notes all this time. Do something with it." And I did some research on single parents and pursuing education. And there are a lot of statistics about the challenges for single parents, single moms in particular. And through that journey, I began to claim my own story. And so, for
mm,
example, when I first wrote it, I went back and looked at the draft of my master's thesis, and I saw my progression over time.
mm,
I had a different child's name in the story. I had the story being basically outside of myself. And then I had a conversation with my daughter, and by that time, she was already a senior in high school. And I said, "Is it okay if I make this book, use this, everything that we've been talking about over the years for my master's thesis?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "The only thing that I ask is that you make the girl's name Sequoia Lee." And I said, "I
mm,
can do that." Yeah. And so it was a coming to terms with my own journey and being
mm,
proud of who I am and who I was as a single parent and celebrating the fact that I didn't do it by myself. I had my mom, I had my dad, I had my siblings, I had my extended community. And throughout the course of the book, I highlighted that, the time that
yeah,
Boy and I got a chance to spend with my mom, my brother, my sister and her husband, friends in the community. And at that one point, though, in the book and in real life, she goes, "Mommy, I know you keep making these connections between nature and family and my daddy, but I want to know, where is my daddy?" And I said to her, I paused and I said, "You have a lot of questions and I can't answer them.
mm,
And maybe one day you'll have a chance to meet your dad and you can ask him those questions." And so she would draw pictures for him and pray for him at night. And then, time went on. And then in 2010, right when Facebook was really starting to blow up, I said,
mm,
"Look for this man." And I looked for him, and there he was. And so that was 2010, and I introduced him to my daughter because he didn't even know if I had a girl, if he had a boy. He didn't know anything. So I sent him a message on Facebook, and I said, "Hey, Michael, remember because I told him, you're not ready to be a parent. One day we will be, and I'll find you." And so I said, "I found you." And his first message to me was, "What did we have?" I said, "It's a girl." And I know, I know. It's a girl. And he goes, "Well, I want to meet her." And I said, "I understand that you want to meet Sequoia and you want to build a relationship with her, but I can't introduce you to her if you're not going to be
yeah,
committed to being in her life."
yeah. Mm.
And so once he said that he was committed to being in her life, and at this time she was 23. She was 23 years
Oh
old.
my God.
Yeah, 23 years without knowing her dad. I said to her, "Remember, I told you I was going to find your dad?" She goes, "Yeah, Mom, what are you talking about?" I said, "Well, I found him." She fell out of her chair. She was like, "What? You found him?" And I said, yeah, I found him and he wants to meet you. And so we started a series of phone conversations. And he was in North Carolina. When he and I
Mm.
met, we were in California. But by this time, many years had passed. He was
Wow.
in armed forces, had traveled the world, and was now in North Carolina. And so my daughter actually went to North Carolina to spend time with him. And over 13 years, 13 years? Yeah. She got a chance to spend time with him. He walked her down the aisle for her wedding. Got a chance to, I'm actually a grandmother. I actually got a chance to meet his grandchildren and spend time with them until he passed in 2023. And so,
Oh,
yeah, and so my daughter is an alchemist. She makes things happen in her life. She truly is incredible, and she has this beautiful family. She's got her own business. She's a dog groomer. Animals love her. Animals and babies love her. And so she's a dog whisperer. And so having this relationship with her dad was really important to her. And so it was my privilege to publish this book, telling this story, and then to put an epilogue, retelling this story because I actually wrote it for my master's
yeah.
thesis. But then to publish it and then to put an epilogue in there, talking about just a brief epilogue about her relationship with her dad. She's really excited about the book coming out. And so my grandchildren, they can't wait to see it when it's actually out.
Mm.
And yeah, that's pretty much the genesis and the revelation of the story, I should say.
Oh, what a story. Like a lot of people can relate. Personally, I can relate to your story because I grew up with a single mom. So
Mm,
I know
yeah,
about the questions because I asked them.
yeah, I know it's a
And
tough question. Yeah,
yeah, it is. And all I can say is a lot of women have gone through this, and I'm sure they'll be grateful to see a book like yours, to see something
yeah.
like that.
Thank you, thank you.
So I said, speaking of your book, every book has its tough moments. What was a major challenge you faced while creating Mommy, Where's My Daddy? And how did you turn it to a moment of growth or creativity?
The greatest challenge I had was how was I going to get someone to illustrate this book? How was I? And at the time, I had some great relationships with some people and hired someone, said, this is the vision that I have for the book. Can you bring it to
Mhm.
life? And the artist, David Brame, brought the pictures to life. This was many years ago. He brought the pictures to life. But I hadn't done anything with the book. I just put it to the side. It was done. And then I thought about doing something more with it when Sequoia's father came into her life. And then deciding, do I publish this? Do I really publish the story and tell this story? And being vulnerable and letting the world see the challenge that it was to be a single parent
Yeah,
raising a child because people see me as a strong woman, strong Black
yes,
woman. While
strong
they're
back home.
Yes, and I am very honored that my parents, my mom and my dad instilled in me a courage to own my truth.
Mm.
My dad especially, because he made many mistakes in his life and he owned up to all of them. And his favorite saying to me was, "You are in the catbird seat." No matter where I was in my life, no matter what, the catbird seat is when you go
Yes.
hunting, when you go hunting,
Hmm.
there's a perch that hunters sit on, and it's called the
Oh, wow.
catbird. You've got you can see everything. And
Yeah,
so my dad would tell me I'm in the catbird seat. Whenever I come to him crying, Daddy, I can't do this. Daddy, I'm not sure about this. In my big age, being grown, I said, Daddy, I'm so worried about this. He says, why are you worried? You're in the catbird seat. You've got the best position. Own your story. Tell your story. It's yours. No one can take that from you. And so I carried that with me. And with my mom, the softness. My mom's a great storyteller as well. She
yeah,
studied anthropology and looking at history. And so owning my own story was probably the hardest part because I carried so much shame from being a single parent. I didn't choose
yeah,
to be a single parent, but you know, like I said, my daughter's 37 now. So I had many years of people being condescending and rude to me for being a single parent.
yeah.
And I was determined to rise above no matter what. But that comes at a cost. It comes at a cost. And there are many challenges, many, many challenges with being a single parent, from housing insecurity to food insecurity to how do you make sure that you're gainfully employed, making sure that you're able to keep a roof over your head, having to move every 2 years because the rent goes up when you have one
Yeah.
income. It's no joke. And I'm sure many women, and thinking specifically of women, single moms, have great challenges when it comes to raising their children. And so being able to be vulnerable and share our story, because I didn't have an answer for Sequoia when
Mm.
she said, Mommy, where is my daddy? I didn't have an answer for her. And so I did my best to answer that question by helping her see how the trees take care of her, and the sun takes
Yeah.
care of her, and the water takes care of her, and her family, and that I take care of her. So, yeah.
Like I said, I really can relate to this because I saw those challenges firsthand. Like it's one thing as a child, then when you do grow up, you see how your mom has struggled, how she kept things together, and then you learn to appreciate everything she went through just for you. It's a beautiful relationship, but at the same time, it's hard. And I'm so happy you had people there for you. You had your
Yeah.
village, because I think that's the hardest part, not having anyone there.
I'm so glad you
Yep.
said that. Having the village. Having the
Yeah.
village made all the difference in the world, because there were days that I just couldn't do it. And so I would
Yeah.
call up a friend, and there is a couple, and they're mentioned in the book, and my daughter and their daughter, Sequoia and their daughter, Melisha, were very good friends. And so they would invite Sequoia over to dinner just to give me a break because it was hard. I was working, I was
It
going to school
was.
so much. And then when it came for vacation times, we spent vacation times with family because then I could get a break. And so there are many, many more stories to tell in that. And one of the things that Sequoia wants to do is to start a podcast talking about what it was like growing up. And
Mm.
so I want her to own her truth in every way possible and to celebrate the fact that where she is right now, and I get a chance to be a part of that because I'm her mom. So, yeah.
So you spoke about your daughter owning her truth, talking about her experience. When you're tackling complex topics for kids, we know kids have emotions. We've been around them. You do know how it feels. So
Yes.
how do you make sure you're honoring their intelligence without oversimplifying their emotions or their experiences?
That's a great question. One of the things that I've learned in my career as an educator, there have been many complex situations that have come up with children and their experiences, is allowing them, giving them the space. In 2006, I'll give you an example. I was a classroom teacher, and in the spring of that year, my administration came to me and said, Hey, we have a challenging situation that is going to be happening next year. I said, What do you mean? And they said, We have a child who is coming to your class who has neuroblastoma. And I was like, what's
Mm.
neuroblastoma? So I did my research. Neuroblastoma is a form of pediatric cancer, very aggressive pediatric cancer. And they said, We
Mm.
want him to be in your class. And I was like, Why? No, I can't. It's too hard. And I visited
Mm.
this child, at his home, got to know him and his family. He ended up coming to the school, which meant there were several things we had to do as a community to prepare for his arrival.
Mm.
First of all, just having a transition period of him coming to the school, and then telling the families in the school. And he was the sweetest boy. And then letting the children know that this child was sick, and the children were fantastic. They were so warm and welcoming and receptive. Unfortunately, on November 1st, 2006, this child died.
Oh,
So, yeah, no one wants to deal with the death of a child. I mean,
a child. Yeah.
it's not supposed to
Mm.
happen. Children are not supposed
Mm.
to die.
Yeah.
And there was a tremendous amount of grieving that took place between the families, between me and my colleagues and the children. And the best thing that we did for the children was to allow them the time and the space to express their grief, whether it was through play, whether it was through
Mm,
music, whether it was through them talking, whether it was through them writing stories. There are complex issues that face all of us. And
mm,
with children facing complex situations like the death of a friend, there are many opportunities to give to support them in that. I found after I'd left the school many years later, and when the children graduated from elementary school to go on to middle school, they honored this child at their graduation. I mean, the entire grade honored him because they all remembered. And the school
yeah.
was very receptive in allowing them to honor this child. And so there's not just one answer to dealing with complex issues when it comes to children and adults, but there are many opportunities to allow them to face them. And I think there is great opportunity for growth and great opportunity for people to be able to express themselves when you create the
Hmm.
space. When you create that space, yeah.
Wonderful answer.
Yeah.
So, when you think about your legacy, the legacy you want to leave behind, what impact do you hope your stories will have, not just on children, but on the literary world?
That's a fantastic question. Talking about legacy. Like I said, I'm a storyteller, and there are so many stories that need to be told.
Mm,
And I hope and believe that me telling my story will give other women, children, parents the courage to tell their own stories and to be creative. Like you said,
yeah.
I'm a screenwriter. I'm actually working on a large scale animation project and working with families and with people who are artists to bring this to life. It's a
Mm,
long journey to make it happen.
yeah.
But by me taking this initiative to have this vision of a story and finding the resources to bring it to life and
Mm,
hiring people from historically underrepresented communities who have talent, who are artists,
yeah.
who are storytellers, who are writers to be a part of this. That's the legacy I want to believe. That's the legacy I want to build. It's great for me to be able to do this, but there's an even greater opportunity for me providing other people the opportunity and the space and to give themselves permission to be creative. And I'm really excited about that. Storytelling, writing books, tapping into our creativity is essential. Toni Morrison said, now is the time. This is the right time
Mm,
for all of us to be creators, to be storytellers, to not shrink back, not quoting her correctly. But now is not the time for fear. Now is for the time for celebration. Now is for the time for us to engage in writing and drawing and creating. This is the time. And I'm really
mm,
hoping that when people read my children's book, and they continue following the work that I'm doing and see the other books that I will be publishing, it will give them permission. Like, wait, I can do this. I absolutely can do
yeah.
this. That's my hope. That's my hope for my legacy, and for my own children. I have two children to embrace their own creativity. I mean, that's to me is the greatest gift of being a parent, is
Yeah.
giving my children the time and the space and hopefully the resources and connections for them to pursue the passions that they love and the dreams that they love. And by extension, doing that for my community, for my grandchildren, for my two grandbabies, to see that it is absolutely expected for them to be their very best selves and use creativity as an outlet. So, yeah, that's my legacy.
Yeah, that's a wonderful legacy. I think that legacy, that's what every parent wants, something to
Yeah.
leave something for their children.
Yes.
All right, so can you tell us where we can find your book, Mommy, Where is My Daddy? And where can we find you on social media?
Yes. So you can find the book, Mommy, Where is My Daddy, on Amazon with the exact title, Mommy, Where is My Daddy by Tracy L. Gray. It is on Amazon, it's on Kindle. You can also visit my website at tracylgray.com. I'm on LinkedIn at Tracy L. Gray. You can find Mommy Where Is My Daddy on Instagram, the actual Mommy Where Is My Daddy. You can find it there. You can also find me on Instagram at tracylgray.com. And you can find me on Twitter or X, sorry, X, formerly Twitter, at Mommy Where Is My Daddy. And so, yeah, I hope that folks will find great inspiration in this book and are able to connect with it in a way that is authentic and that will support them in their journey for creativity and for storytelling, truly.
Tracy, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your journey, and your incredible work with us and Meet the Author and Rolling Out. Your stories remind us about how powerful love can be, how powerful imagination and resilience can be, especially for the children navigating life's big questions, children like me. So
Yes.
we
Yes.
can't wait to see what's next for you. And we know this is inspired and they can't wait to see what you do with this book. And we can't wait to see more books from you. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank
And
you
we can't wait
very
to see you next time. All
Take
right.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.